Welcome back to chapter.
Nice to be back. I'll keep my shirt on for the whole thing this time.
Yeah. What?
You missed gig again.
How have we all been?
Good.
Good. No injuries. I think last time we chatted, I had like a little bit of a calf, just like a squeaky wheel, but feeling good now.
Is that the standard that we're going for? Is just to go no injuries across the week?
I turned 40, so
probably a key
the standard
thing
for me is like if I'm not broken, I'm winning. So.
Yeah. Well, I've kicked off my week one. I've just completed week one of marathon training for Gold Coast Marathon.
Fantastic.
So first week done in the block. Still at that like honeymoon phase of it where everything feels great and I'm enjoying it and I'm enjoying the long runs.
Marathon pace every day kind of thing?
No. No.
You're not doing Gold Coast, are you?
2.5.
Oh, you are doing that? Okay.
You're not going to join?
I may if I can get a... Yeah. I don't think I can get a ticket. Maybe I'll do it at half.
Yeah.
We'll
I've also managed to throw myself into... Not throw myself into it, it's a bit of fun. But now doing Stratty Salute as a team relay, which will be fun.
Nice.
So...
Is that on Stratty? Forgive me.
Stratty. Yeah, it is on Stratty. So it's a triathlon. I've done the full thing before, but we're just having a fun day out and a bit of a tag team relay style, bit of competitiveness, which will be really fun with some friends.
What leg are you doing?
I'm doing the run. Somehow I'm great. I'm so happy. I thought I was going to have to swim.
Like you're a runner.
Yeah, but all of us are runners.
Oh.
It's a bit of a trail run almost, that one, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It is. So
the beach.
Yeah, it's like 1 kilometer uphill and then like a kilometer along the beach. It's not easy.
Couldn't it? Doesn't look easy.
My heart rate was very, very high last time. But it should be a fun one though. Good day out.
What have you got for us, Sally? What are we doing?
So, should we kick off with running headlines?
Yes.
So, something that really stuck out to me this month, or just looking back recently, was the on 18th of March was the Barkley Marathon. Do you know much about this grueling ultra marathon that comes out of Tennessee?
Pretty crazy.
So it's actually one of the world's toughest ultra marathons, and it's 100 miles split into 5 loops. It's known for its huge failure rate. So it's only been
I'm also known for my huge failure rates.
It's only been completed 26 times by 20 runners.
What?
So yeah, it's absolutely grueling.
That's crazy.
But what was unique this year, so on 18th of March, nobody completed this year, which is crazy. It's really interesting to me because it's obviously known and it's notorious for being such a grueling marathon, ultra marathon. And it's really interesting that people are so drawn to it and drawn to that failure. And I guess it's that, can I do it?
Yeah. Is this the same one that the female finished for the first time ever last year? Was that the same thing I'm thinking of?
I'm not sure. It's sort of like almost like this, enchanted wizard looking guy who sets up the marathons where he has all these different ways of people having to go through the course. They're not allowed to use GPS, so they have to rely on these maps that have been drawn on, and it's quite cryptic how they have to move through the forest and everything to actually do the fun runs. So they call it
in the dark.
Exactly, in the dark.
So you're not signing up for this if you just want a fun ultra marathon. This is like people that are a bit unhinged kind of.
Known for its really mentally taxing challenges. So you have to try and almost orienteer yourself when you're really deep into like 2 days deep into an ultra marathon.
And you mentioned the fun run, which is the name that they give to 3 laps, which John Kelly, who's won it 3 times already, that's as far as he got. And over those 3 laps, it's the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest twice.
What?
Apparently.
It's crazy.
Which is crazy. And so the route changes each time as well, which is probably another factor to why people may not have completed it this year. Maybe it was just too challenging on the elevation. But wow, I just think it's quite incredible to see that in the news.
I was just thinking as well, if you quit, you also have to find your way back.
Yeah.
And you're probably in really, it's one of those things, it's like you probably just want to quit at the end of a loop. You don't want to kind of go again knowing that you're going to tap out. I certainly won't be signing up anytime.
There's a good documentary about it. Definitely worth watching.
Okay.
It's so interesting. Even the checkpoints is just like a almost like a fantasy type thing where they have to go and like take a page out of this book and then bring it back as proof that they've actually reached the checkpoint between the furthest points.
Lord of the Rings, Amazing Race.
Yeah, I think that's where the hype comes from.
Yeah.
It was just so unique.
Yeah.
Which also brings me to another thought though. You kind of, sounds like you're kind of talking about it, but on my For You page, I've seen this Hobbit marathon. Have you seen that? That happens in New Zealand.
No.
No, I'm gonna have to.
Page is in much better shape than my For You.
What's going on in your algorithm?
So apparently there's this marathon race where there's like a Hobbit. It's a Hobbit marathon, and there's like wizardy kind of guys running alongside you and that interact with you.
Is it more of a Hobbit themed marathon? Or is it just like for small people? I don't know.
No. It's a Hobbit themed marathon across New Zealand to kind of like sightsee. And I really want to do it.
I can see it.
You're like, oh, I can't enter. I'm too tall.
It's like the fun size marathon. Like, yeah.
No, but I really want to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just reminded me of that when you were saying about how the cryptic notes and stuff looks so fun. I think it's actually only a half, so I'm going to explore that.
I mean, I'd dress up as Gandalf for you every time. I reckon that could be.
Yeah. But I guess going back to the Barkley Marathon, I guess what I really wanted to highlight is that most of us will never encounter a challenge to that extremity. But I think it does really highlight an important part. Some of those runners have completed that run before, and it takes a lot of courage and knowing when is the right time to stop and to stop pushing yourself. And that takes a different type of, mental push, I guess, to understand that this isn't my day or I can't complete this, and step out of yourself. And it's really hard to, I guess, step out of your head in those moments in a high emotion environment, and know when to stop. But I thought that was a really interesting thought that came off the back of seeing that news headline around nobody finishing this year.
I think it's, people keep on trying to push the limits, and, I feel like there's a big shift with Ned Brockman and all this kind of thing, where it's like almost the point now is just to like destroy yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're not completely destroying yourself, it's almost not worth doing. And I feel like that's admirable, but also there should be something admirable about being prepared for something that you are not going to put your life at risk for, or something like that, and still feel accomplished. And I know as someone who struggles with perfectionism, that's not that easy, but I think it's probably a good reminder that's like, sometimes if we orchestrate these things and make them so hard that we lose the actual point of enjoying it. I guess the point is to not enjoy it, but you still want to. Like, they're passionate about running, so you don't want to get to the end of the event and just be destroyed. And then
no. And even the best runners have to give up at some points, and that's not a failure. It's, reframing that in your mind.
Yeah.
And that's a really good transition into our de-influencing running, where we wanted to just have a good open chat about, sort of like that hustle culture, no days off culture. It's sort of been popularized recently by, the David Goggins culture, and maybe the Ned Brockmans and these types of things. So do you guys see that much in your algorithms?
Okay.
So I know your algorithm is going to be going on
I
for
do
it. So.
get graced with that. I also see a lot of other things on my algorithm, but that specifically, I do see a lot of that.
No, I 100% do, like that hustle culture and that no rest day kind of thing. And I do actually have to I do say I don't like this and mute it, because
healthy.
It's really toxic.
You don't need more of that.
No, I don't. I have enough of it in my head. I think you respect a rest day more than I do.
I used to really struggle, but more so now I'm happy to kind of realise, I've done the thing where I'm so obsessed with like hitting a volume target or doing a run or something, and I've known that I'm feeling a bit off, and then I've gone out anyway and been injured. And I've done it enough times to go, okay, I know this pattern. I should probably just listen to my body and not do it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I'm really trying to deploy with this marathon training block, is just really being in tune to my body and listening for the warning signs. And it may not just be physical, but it may be mental, really just assessing, I guess, when is the right time to push on. And fatigued legs is something that we can generally push through, and is okay, but recognizing when actually there's a bit of a red flag there.
That's it. And some of those indicators are you get out of bed in the morning and you have like a really good, honest chat with yourself, like, how am I really feeling? Like, how were those first few steps? How was actually waking up and trying to, have a thought? Like, am I really cooked, or am I just going to push through this?
Yeah, it's hard because often you can just be really tired as well.
Yeah.
So like sometimes you feel really bad and then you head out for a run and you actually perform amazingly.
Yeah.
So that's probably what confuses us.
It is really tough.
Probably more about that, like the depreciating trend. So if it keeps happening and it's getting worse and it's not getting any better, maybe the interval session today is not the best idea.
Yes.
And even like elite athletes and people who do really well in their sport or activity, like these people are almost always having like one rest day, or even if it's just something very, very easy in the week, just to break it up. No one's, you don't hear of elite athletes necessarily trying to have like a 1,000-day run streak, for example, where some people get really like fixed and attached to that. Oh, I have to, run today. I have to because I've got a streak. Yeah, it's not.
The strongest streak.
Like hella good. I'm just like, how does he not break his run streak? Like, there's got to be rainy days or travel days or something. It's like such a massive commitment. I'm just like, no, it's not worth it. My thing with the rest day, I think people frame rest day as you can't do anything.
Yeah.
So that's probably the hardest thing, is understanding that, well, a rest day for a runner is just doing something else that doesn't put the same load through the legs. So it could be going to the gym and doing a great opportunity to do, some prehab stuff or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But we all just want to get out and pound the pavement all the time. So
Yeah, it sounds great. What do you mean?
it's awesome.
So your rest days are like 100 squats and 200 wall balls. And
Yeah, well, that's not a rest day.
on the ski.
It's not.
I was
No.
specifically talking about like single leg isolation work,
Yeah.
like 5 to 10 reps, like.
Well, I actually, guys, growth. I actually went for a little mobility session the other day, and I was like, this is quite nice. Like, this is really, I get why people do it, and I think I get the appeal of yoga and things. Not that I'm going to do it. But I was like, wow, like I feel great.
As you get older, you start to understand the appeal. Just hurt less.
I love that. Yoga. Interesting. Not going to do it, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, intrigued.
I know the
Just say you're
benefits.
yoga curious.
No.
Not really curious.
No, I have a
Reformer
firm.
curious.
No, I've done it, and it's just I just get bored. Like, it was nice for one day, but mobility is really important, and I love a good stretch, but I like feeling like I've killed myself in a day. Like,
That's fair. I get it.
maybe we should do a chapter athletic yoga episode.
If you want to put yourself through that, then feel free. That's up to you. That's on you.
I'm down. I think it could be good. I'm excited. I'm a new man.
Okay.
Reform.
Why do I feel like you walk in with like all the gear?
Yeah, I'd like head to
Like
toe.
rippy socks, CSBs.
Yeah. It's probably like a
Do we
level
just-
3 yoga or something. I don't know.
Okay, enough bullying Darcy
Okay.
today.
Tell us what else we should be doing.
I'll absolutely pay that. So going on from there, talking about sweaty boys, we've got how to deal with the Australian climate. It's pretty tough sometimes, particularly here in southeast Queensland, where we've got all different ranges of conditions, from really, really rainy, where we're having to deal with mud and slipping over, and just generally hazardous conditions, and then just trying to deal with recovering from the heat and the humidity, where say if we are trying to do a training block over the summer period, and just being quite honest about how much harder that is to actually do under those conditions compared to when it's more optimal maybe in winter. So like in terms of hydration, how do you guys think you would rate yourself in terms of hydration through the summer? Are you good at it?
Awful.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it?
I find that I'm a very salty sweater.
Yeah.
And so I find that I'm really prone to dehydration. Like, I'll notice on my skin after a hard session, I'm salty. And on my face and things.
Pretty salty already.
Salty in
Just
general.
salty. So it's definitely something I'm wanting to get better at. And, thinking about my training, I didn't train with water a lot last year on my long runs. And we often talk about gut tolerance
Any other
with
fluids or just nothing?
No, well, I just relied on like taps along, because where we run in the city, there's so many taps and bubblers
Yeah, true.
that I just kind of relied on those. And actually, it really didn't train. We often talk about training your gut with gels and carbs, but I found that I really struggled on race day then with taking on water, and I felt really sloshy, and it didn't sit right with me. So I definitely want to start getting better at taking on more water while running. And I think doing trails, when I've had to take out water, it was so hot and humid at Noosa Ultra Trail. And again, I had that feeling where I just did not feel great because I was drinking water, trying to compensate for how much I was sweating. And it was really impacting my performance because I just did not feel great. So it's definitely something that I'm working on.
And it is really hard to get right too, just with the way that people sweat being so variable. So there's like the sweat rate, like how much fluid is actually coming out in the perspiration, and then also the sodium losses and the electrolyte losses, which can also vary from person to person. That one is pretty tough. There is like sweat tests that you can get. I don't know if everyone's seen like Precision Hydration offer one. Where you can find one that's local to you. But even like outside of that, if a person's like weighed themselves before and after a long run, they might get an idea, specific to those conditions, how much fluid they're actually losing.
I've done it before. I did it recently a couple of weeks ago, just out of curiosity. I think I lost about 2.5, 3 kilos. Which is a lot.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know how I'd get that back. I mean, I easily put it back eating hamburgers, but aside from that, it's hard to replace that much fluid.
Yeah, well, according to the Sports Dietitians Australia, I think that they say to try and replace those losses with 125 to 150% of that loss. So you might have to drink 4.5 litres of water.
Oh, wow.
Just to
I'm not drinking that much.
It's a lot of water, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you just risk waking up dehydrated the next day. I think that can be a bit of a struggle, especially if you leave at 5 a.m. and you try and snack on something.
I'm just constantly dehydrated, so I don't know any different. So then it just works for me because I don't know what.
No, I definitely don't drink enough water. Good, like thinking about that.
Another thing that I think has brought me unstuck before is with the hydration is you're trying to do saunas to all the benefits that come with sauna, and it being already humid and hot outside, and I'm running again in the morning. So I found that to be one that maybe didn't work for me in the hot conditions. It's just getting even more dehydrated from the sauna.
Yeah, I don't think many people think about that. Are
really?
You sauna curious? Or?
No, I wish I had more time in the week to do that, but I just can't get around to it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm like you with sauna. I just get bored. Like, why would I sit in a hot room? Like, there's no good reason.
Why would I put myself through pain?
Yeah.
Isn't that what we do with running?
Recover. Is it
just push on.
I actually love it.
Really?
I think it's great.
It's so different.
I
probably do yoga in the sauna. You probably just
actually try to sometimes.
Yeah.
Get a bit of a stretch on. Only the ones where you're by yourself.
I really don't know. It's not relaxing to me. Other people in the sauna.
You have to see you better.
The last thing I was doing was doing downward dog.
I went it by myself. There's different characters in the saunas too.
Yeah.
Oh, you have real good conversations. Like the conversations you get yourself in the sauna, that is actual character building.
There's always that person with like the eucalyptus oil, and they want to just like aromatherapy the whole sauna. Is it okay if I just put this lavender on?
The other thing that I was going to touch on is the difference between dry versus humid heat. So my best friend was doing her first marathon this weekend, and it was really funny because she messaged me before and she was like, oh, it's gotten really, really hot all of a sudden in London. And she was like, it's now 21 degrees. And I was like, oh my God, if we had a day like that, like that's the best running condition. But it's really different because they do have this dry heat. And what happens there is that you sweat more efficiently. So the sweat evaporates really quickly and you don't notice how much you're sweating. And the danger in that is that then you are not compensating enough because you don't realize how much you're sweating. So as much as the difference with what we deal with day to day in Queensland is we have this humid heat. So we're really sweaty and we stay wet for the entire session. And what we see there is we have our heart rate elevated. Our pace our rate of perceived effort is increased. Our pace is obviously affected as a result. And we're aware of how sweaty we are, but it's equally important in both of those situations to really pay attention to how much, to try and take on as much fluid as possible, and really not underestimate the impact of dry heat, because you may just not know how much you're sweating in those occasions. So I guess a good outtake for that would be to perhaps weigh yourself at one point and just see how much fluid you're possibly losing as a bit of a guide. But it's not one or the other. They're very different. And I think we would love a dry heat day sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily make it much easier.
No, definitely not. And sometimes, depending on where you are in Australia too, the sun can be quite different.
Yes.
So we've got very high UV here in southeast Queensland because we are relatively close to the equator compared to the southern states. But that's a pretty tricky one to not get zapped from, because that makes a huge difference in terms of your vitality, strength through the run. It is also interesting. I don't know if you guys have been down south and running there, where in like Tasmania or Victoria, it's harder to objectively define that. People seem like the sun is even harsher there.
Yeah.
Talk to people and what we've settled on is probably the low humidity, where there's just nothing buffering the sun out, and the sun can be really, really harsh in those southern states.
I think there is a hole in the ozone kind of directly above those areas too. Like, I just know that when you're in Melbourne, you can get burnt quite easily, and we don't get burnt here as often because we live here, but I often go to Melbourne and actually get quite burnt, and I'll be like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely.
People get absolutely roasted, like at the MCG or the beach, especially the tourists coming in and just laying on the beach or at the cricket all day. You see some really red people.
Yeah.
No, you definitely have those days where it can be colder, and even I think in Australia especially, where it feels cold out, but then the sun is still really, really strong, and that can have a real impact. And I definitely experienced that last year at Gold Coast, where I probably underestimated the thinking it would be like a cool day, but the sun, it was really, really strong, and I actually really struggled with that. Yeah. And I am a Brit, and so I'm not acclimatized, but yeah.
I have a funny feeling though, like Queenslanders, we do much better in colder climates, we have to run in very harsh conditions generally. We train.
Oh, yeah.
All our interval sessions are brutal. If we don't, especially in summer, if we're not starting our sessions 5 a.m, by the time we finish, we're getting absolutely cooked. So it kind of works in our favour, where we can go to Melbourne or Sydney and run in 14-degree weather, and we're just loving it.
Acclimatised,
so heat trained or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Something like that.
For some of those southern states, they've got to deal with the cold and even rain creating slipperiness. So I don't know if you guys have really thought, sometimes you don't really think that much about the grip on your shoes until you really need it.
Until you run in Puma shoes.
And then you go, wow.
You've got a grip for
The Puma grip is something else.
It is. It's very grippy.
It makes such a difference. So the grip on the shoe is really important as well. And you can get, your body can get quite stressed out from the really cold conditions too. So there's a lot of ways that people need to look after that part as well, because that's also not insignificant.
So all the weather conditions, in conclusion, are not ideal, and
just don't run.
Don't run. I feel like this is the conclusion.
I came to the same conclusion last time.
Run on the treadmill.
No.
Do yoga.
No.
Do yoga.
Do yoga. We're going to move on to running culture now. And what I wanted to discuss today is, obviously, as we've mentioned, there's so many races coming up. And we've also, even in our personal lives, got a few friends who are training for some incredible events and all doing it in the name of charity. And this is amazing, because I think running and fundraising is just kind of double the glory, really. You're not just doing it for yourself, and there's a bit more of it's not just intrinsic motivation, but you've got this external motivation, something to push for in those hard moments. Have you guys ever run for charity / would you?
I don't think so, not that I can recall. Definitely would if it was the right thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, trying to help our friend get from Sydney to Brisbane. Cam Flavel, a good friend, and he's going to be trying to run from Sydney to Brisbane to break the fastest known time, which is, I think, 10 days and 7 hours, and doing that in the name of charity for the Smith family. So people who are suffering with poverty and these kinds of problems.
Yeah, I was chatting to Cam this week actually, after one of his long, slow runs, which is awesome. And it was a really cool insight, because we've had a few guys within our kind of friendship circles that have done things recently as well. You've got Timmy Franklin, Lockie Stewart, And you've got the guys like Ned Brockman, and it's kind of becoming a more forefront thing that people are getting more airtime with running for charity. And the thing that really interested me, that Cam's perspective was different to those other guys. The gist I got from him was that he wants to come into this event knowing that he's, you know, probably going to have to try 60%, and he's that prepared that he's got that margin for error, so that he's not coming in thinking this is some insurmountable goal. Because I think it is important, if we're running for charity and we're trying to raise money, what I do think is important, I'm not trying to be negative, but it's important not to just hinge your accountability onto an external party. And like what you asked Darcy, you know, like, would I run for charity? I probably wouldn't. Often when I see like a charity event advertised, I'll often donate to the charity and go do it myself, because I want to be able to have, me personally, I'd rather have the choice to do it and not make a big deal out of it. So I understand that we need to bring, we need to highlight causes that are important, but I feel like people can, and I'm not saying this about Cam or all the people that we've just talked about, but it can almost become this thing where that's our like social service done, and we get this gratification from doing this thing out in the open, where it's like, I much more value people that just get the job done thanklessly. So I think there's both sides of the coin.
Yeah, and I think that's just the two different ways that people do approach charity, and you see that in, you know, wider outside of running. Some people, you know, will just donate and make a big song and dance about it, and that's great. That doesn't make it any less of a, you know, an amazing thing to do it in silence. Both are, I think it's just personal preference really, and what you feel is right. Yeah, I think there's also, you know, a discussion around, you know, seeing Ned Brockman and people like that doing those amazing challenges. It is, again, where do we draw the line, and how do we ensure we approach it healthily as well? So
not the way Ned does it. Like, you know,
that's a huge topic, but, you know, and these people are doing incredible things in this space as well. And yeah, I think I really am looking forward to seeing like the responsible side of, you know, getting Cam prepared for this challenge as well.
The running for charity or walking for charity thing, there's a lot of different ways that you can obviously think about that. At least I think one of the great events that has been in Australia for a while is that Oxfam 100-kilometre walk.
Yes.
So in a way that is really charity focused, you know, people from all walks of life, no pun intended, do all the laps, and it is like a huge feat. Like, you've got a person who's not run before and maybe done some hiking to try to prepare for this event, and they've, you know, walked for like 12 or 15 hours, and that's almost their like ultra marathon in a way. I think that's a really powerful one. Yeah, because that's incredible for that person. So it is an interesting one though. Like I said, Zoe, there's got to be a line somewhere in terms of, you know, how much a person, you know, can push themselves to the point where it's like, are you just signing yourself up for like health problems?
Yeah, and I think in the age of social media, it's really easy for these things to catch on, and that's why we're seeing so much of it right now. But yeah, I think in general and running culture, I'm looking forward to seeing that more responsible side of raising money for charity is amazing. And let's also protect ourselves and not harm anyone in the process, you know?
And I've been part of charity events, and, you know, like through our business, we've donated a lot of money to charities as well. And we've seen massive change through that.
Yeah.
But the biggest change was donating consistently.
Yeah.
So we had it set up so we're donating percentage of our profits, and I was shocked at how much a small percentage made a difference over a large period of time. So I do worry about people coming in and saying, well, we'll do this giant event. And the problem is those charities or those organisations aren't set up to actually know what to do with that amount of money. So sometimes it can actually break them in a different way because they're not prepared for the visibility they get or whatever it is. So I think it's important either way.
Yeah.
But I do want to see people champion consistency as well. Like, there's nothing wrong with kind of doing a task, but then like choosing to do something consistent that actually, I think that shows more longevity for us as a society if we can get behind that.
And I also think if you are someone who wants to do running for a cause, you don't have to necessarily consider yourself as just an individual person and what can I do. Make it a community thing, perhaps, if that's something that you don't want to put yourself through, a grueling test of endurance or something. There's power in numbers, and I think what's beautiful about running is that you'll find there's so many people you're connected to with running. So perhaps consider, a community approach as well if you want to go down a different route.
I just had the weirdest thought. You know how we were talking about
I'm scared.
the Hobbit marathon thing at the start?
Yeah.
I was thinking a great parody idea for a group would be try and act out the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy as a group while running. There'd be a lot of people. It would take a long time, and it would be a feat.
I'm struggling to see the connection.
That was the single most random thing you ever said.
This is the way my brain works. In my mind, it's a great idea.
Well, I guess
Monkey symbols.
a Lord of the Rings episode can take 3 hours. Marathon could take 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've just found the fact that what's long running? What movie is long? Lord of the Rings.
Because you've already mentioned it.
If you do the whole trilogy,
If
you do the whole trilogy, it's like an ultra marathon.
Yeah, it's like 9 hours
Right.
of running. And you get to wear costumes. It could be a real thing. Anyway,
We'll think about it.
think about it.
We'll think
Someone
about
out there.
it. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
Anything else that we want to touch on?
Not after that.
Actually follow that up. Thanks so much for watching and listening to another episode of Chapter Athletic. It was great to talk through all the running headlines from recently, talk through how to deal with humidity in the Queensland heat, the difference between dry versus humid heat, and also debunk some of the hustle culture that running is bringing.
And running for charity as well. Thank you for watching. If you have any queries about the visual of Darcy doing yoga in a sauna, please write to info@chapter.athletic.com and we'll field all your queries and forward them to our HR department. We appreciate your concerns and we will act accordingly.
Hi, my name is Darcy and I'm yoga curious.
You're not yoga curious. The way you talk, you are not yoga curious. You are far beyond curious.